Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for our main event of the evening. This is a junior middleweight bout taking place inside of 8 rounds. Our first competitor approaching the blue corner. Here is Luis Alberto Veron.
Well, as of late, Luis Veron has been making a living doing exactly this, stepping in on relatively short notice to take on extremely tough opposition. He did it against Alexis Rocha, he did it against Shojahoner Gashev, and he will do it again once again here tonight. Veron, a part of a fighting family. 5 of his brothers are boxers. The other brother is a PhD candidate and a social scientist. But Luis is the oldest of them, and perhaps the bravest as well. Always hunting for the toughest tests, and he has found another one tonight in New York City.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, his opponent, making stride to the red corner at this time, here is Brian Ceballo.
So Brian Ceballo makes his way to the ring. Just a handful of months after suffering his first professional defeat in Puerto Rico, Ceballo was once lauded as one of the top prospects in the sport. And Curran, he hasn't necessarily lost that luster yet. And I know he opened up to you quite a bit as far as his feelings heading into this contest.
Ceballo mentioned he had a rough 3 years. The loss recently was not a learning experience. It's what he calls a wake-up call, a blessing in disguise. It's allowed more motivation for Brian Ceballo, and in his own words, he will be 200% here tonight, and he's getting the opportunity to headline here at Sony Hall and continue on the path that he was on.
So we are ready for our main event. Let's send it up to Matt Compitello to meet the fighters.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is our main event of the evening here at Broadway Boxing. Presented to you by Boxing Insider in association with DeBella Entertainment and streaming on DAZN. It is a junior middleweight bout taking place inside of 8 rounds. The judges are John Basile, Anthony Lundy, and John McKay. Ed Claudio is the referee in charge of the action. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? Señoritas y caballeros, ustedes están listos. Señoritas y caballeros, vámonos. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go! Introducing first, competing out of the blue corner, de Jose Leon Suarez, Buenos Aires, Argentina. From Jose Leon Suarez, Buenos Aires, Argentina. Él es 5 pies, 11 pulgadas de alto y pesando con 153 libras, 4 onces. He is 5 feet 11 inches tall, weighing in at 153 pounds 4 ounces. Con un récord 20 victorias, 6 derrotas y 2 impases. With a record of 26-2 y 9 victorias via nocaut, 9 victories by way of knockout. Señoritas y caballeros, te presento Luis Alberto Veron. Ladies and gentlemen, his opponent, competing out of the red corner, hailing from Brooklyn, New York, standing 5 feet 10 inches tall, weighing in at 152.4 pounds, entering this contest with a record of 13-1. 7 of his 13 victories by way of knockout. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Brian Ceballo. We go to referee Ed Claudio with the instructions for both competitors.
Como dicen en español, porque tú entiendes eso, ¿ok? Le di la instrucción al camarero de aquí para arriba, está bien, ¿ok? Los golpes. Déjense y obedecen el mando en todo momento, ¿ok? Si quieren tocar, toquen. Buena suerte.
Well, 2 years ago, Brian Ceballo was mentioning names like Sergey Lipinets, Sean Porter, even Manny Pacquiao as potential opponents in the not-too-distant future. Tonight represents a bit of a career restart for Brian Ceballo, once regarded as a can't-miss prospect. Can he retain some of that buzz that he had just a couple of short years ago, fighting back at home here in Manhattan? Round one of our main event. Brian Ceballo in the black trunks, trimmed with white and silver. You see Luis Veron in the camo with flashes of the Argentinian flag.
And we mentioned what's on the line for Brian Ceballo. This is also a massive opportunity for Luis Veron. You mentioned, Corey, he's fighting out of Argentina. He's promoted by Marcos Maidana and describes his style to be similar to that of Marcos Maidana. And if that's true, we should be seeing a lot of him swarming Brian Ceballo and not allowing it to necessarily be an easy night, or allowing Ceballo to easily get that big win, which he needs after coming off of a loss.
It's interesting that he would say that, Curran, because Luis Veron's style could not be any more different from Marcos Maidana. I mean, Luis Veron, with all due respect to him, he is a spoiler. He wins fights by spoiling. That is not what Marcos Maidana did.
Certainly, but what a fighter feels about their style versus what they produce in the ring are two different things.
Two very different things. Right hand connects there from Ceballo. Of course, Ceballo suffered his first loss, a majority decision to Nicholas Flaz. That was in October of last year in San Juan, Puerto Rico. And important to contextualize that fight as well. That was a fight that was on Pro Box TV, which is a series that, not unlike Broadway boxing, but like Showbox, attempts to match prospects and fringe contenders in 50-50 fights. Sometimes, Curran, when you sign up for those fights, you will lose those fights sometimes.
Ceballo was taking on Nicholas Flaz in that fight, as you mentioned, Corey, and it was a close fight. One of the scorecards was actually a draw, but you did notice a difference in intensity and motivation. It seemed like Flaz was throwing multiple punches, Ceballo not as much, and in Ceballo's own words, it's going to be a different, more motivated Brian Ceballo tonight.
Yeah, I think there isn't a ton of utility in nitpicking that performance by Ceballo, because to me, he just looked entirely off in that fight. It looked like his balance was off. He didn't look like the Brian Ceballo of old, the guy who can stay firm, stay tall, and counter the way that he is early in this opening round. All of that was kind of out the window against Flaz. Round two gets underway. Brian Ceballo and Luis Veron in our main event here on Broadway Boxing. presented by Larry Goldberg's Boxing Insider in association with DeBella Entertainment. But Brian Ceballo, promoted by Tom Loeffler, so a trio of promoters involved in this one. And of course, Tom Loeffler did a great job in kind of pairing Ceballo with Triple G on some of those MSG cards and really raising his profile. And Curran, as we've talked about before, one of the advantages Ceballo has in his marketing is that, you know, he's such a good communicator. He's so worldly outside of the ring. He's really a journalist's dream. If you're looking to profile a fighter, Ceballo will give you a lot.
Ceballo has a finance degree. He owns a boxing gym in the financial district called Bout Fight Club. He's a thinking man's fighter, and he's able to show that in the ring. At the same time, that may have hurt him. As he opened up this week to me, he mentioned the last 3 years were rough. The pandemic was difficult. He wasn't able to be as active as he wanted to, and that was something difficult for him to deal with. Now he took a loss recently. He's using that as motivation. And we should point out, we've been talking about his last fight with Nicholas Flaws. Nicholas Flaws was coming off of a loss in that opportunity versus Brian Ceballo. He used that as motivation. So it's recently, the blueprint for that has recently been done.
I want to draw a through line between that fight and this one. You know, some people might have thought that Flaws wasn't much of a threat because he had been knocked out in one round by Janelson Boca Chica. Some people thought that maybe Luis Veron is faded because he was knocked out in one round by Santiago Sanchez not that long ago. But sometimes first round results, they can be a little bit fluky. As Veron starting to feel these body shots from Ceballo. The posture of Veron changing here in the second round. You definitely notice Veron, in terms of his physique, not quite as shredded as we're used to seeing him, a little bit softer in the midsection. And as a result, perhaps a little bit more susceptible to some of these shots as he gets cracked with a left hook from Ceballo, and some swelling immediately starting underneath the right eye of Veron.
And we're seeing the Brian Ceballo we are used to seeing, right? Boxing, moving, and sitting down on punches and landing in combination. And here we see some of the work from Brian Ceballo, using the jab to set up the distance, left hook to the body. It's a varied attack from Ceballo. Downstairs, upstairs, we spoke about he's the thinking man's fighter. And he's showing that here tonight.
Corner of Luis Veron working hard on that swelling between rounds. And Veron comes out firing with that right hand. Ceballo has been absolutely on fire when he's doubled up that left hook to the body into the head. We feel as though it might have affected Veron to the body in the second round, and certainly when you look at Veron's face, that left hook has done some damage. But Veron, most of the time, finds a way to take talented fighters' rounds. We mentioned Alexis Rocha or Gachev. Don't forget about Elvis Rodriguez to Ross Celestiuk. And he fought Taras Celestiuk. We talk about Veron taking any assignment seemingly that's thrown to him. He fought him 14 days after he was in a previous fight. He was in the gym 1 day after the fight prior to that, getting ready in case a call like that came.
I spoke to Luis Veron this week. He said he's been born to fight. He has 5 brothers. They're all boxers. They're trained by his father. It's a family affair. They used to fight every single day growing up, and their father eventually said, hey, why don't you try this at a professional level? And Veron has put in rounds. He's put in work. He's bringing in the experience edge here tonight.
Ceballo looking to capitalize on some of the swelling on the face of Veron. And probably hoping to get out of this one unscathed. Curran, I'm sure you saw him do a little modeling for Dolce & Gabbana recently. I'm sure he'd like to keep a clean face after this fight. Now it's Veron who digs downstairs to the body. Ceballo says, okay, we could do that, and rips a left hand downstairs. Approaching the final 30 seconds of round 3. And I think Veron is finding it hard to tap into his spoiler instincts in what is a pretty tiny ring here at Sony Hall as he gets blasted to the body again.
And you can see the poise and the motivated expression on Brian Ceballos' face. This is not the Brian Ceballo that fought one fight ago. Ceballo working the jab, getting it through the guard. Ceballo's done a good job of including the body in his attack. And as Corey pointed out last round, when Ceballo took the big body shot, he answered with one right back. And I think that just speaks to his motivation and understanding this moment here tonight at Sony Hall and this opportunity.
Here we go with round 4. Brian Ceballo and Luis Veron. Ceballo to this point looking revitalized, looking drastically different than he did against Nicholas Flaws last time out. And I think, Curran, one thing that was constant throughout that Flaws fight is that Ceballo was just taking himself out of position to land punches. He was making defensive maneuvers, but then was getting hit as he was rolling with shots. He just seemed out of position, and that's very unlike Brian Ceballo, who when he's at his best is always ready to strike, even when he's had someone who's hyper-aggressive like a Bakhtiari Yubov trying to press him. He's always remained ready to strike, and we're seeing that against Veron once again.
Last fight, Ceballo was trying to force it a little bit, maybe trying to sit down on a shot and land a home run punch. In this fight, this week, Ceballo told me, I'm going to adapt in the ring. If there's a knockout, great, it'll come, but I'm not looking for it. I'm going to look and see what will happen and adjust. And he's done a great job of fighting with his eyes open, making adjustments in this fight, and able to land a very varied attack. We're seeing punches at different angles, to the body, to the head.
Well, there again, we saw Ceballo just respond with the exact shot he got hit with. Veron landed a chopping right hand. Ceballo landed a better one in return. And Veron now very intentionally on the move and holding on. You have to wonder if maybe one of those shots had an impact. Veron can be a little bit deceptive. He's very jittery in his approach. Sometimes it can be difficult to figure out whether he was impacted by something or whether that's just his cadence. Good shot there from Ceballo.
He is a moving target, Veron. But to your point, Corey, Ceballo is doing a good job of anytime he gets hit by a power shot, he's throwing it right back. In a way, a lot of great fighters do that, almost neutralize it on the judges' scorecards and say, oh, you don't want to count that. I have that in my toolkit as well.
More good body work from Ceballo, a left hand right along the belt line. Sneaky counter shot there from Veron. Was a little bit more stationary right now, perhaps because of that body work. Veron digging in, couple of left hook score from the Argentinian. Round 5 of 8 begins here in our main event. Brian Ceballo and Luis Veron. Ceballo off to a terrific start to the first half of this fight.
Early on in this fight, we've seen Ceballo box and move, but as we've been speaking about, he's invested heavily to the body, and it looks like those punches may be paying dividends. The question will be, if Veron does slow down, how does that affect Ceballo's game plan? Does he continue to throw punches? Does he continue to sit down on his punches? Or does that actually wake up Veron and say, hey, I am now a stationary target. I need to figure something else out. And we're seeing a little bit of that urgency play out.
I was going to say, we are seeing a degree of urgency from Veron that in past fights, in other situations, we haven't. You know, against Alexis Rocha, it felt like he was content to spoil and go the rounds. Tonight, you do get the sense that Veron feels like the fight's getting away from him and he's trying to do something about it.
And Veron landed a huge right hand there as both men were exchanging. And to your point, Corey, when I spoke to Veron this week, he said, I'm coming off of a win. This is a crossroads fight because Ceballo's coming off of a loss. So if you put yourself in the mind of Veron, he says, I've already got a win in 2023. If I can get this big win here, I've turned around my entire career. I've put myself in place for huge opportunities in boxing. So that might be extra motivation here for Veron.
Veron taking a pile of shots from Ceballo over the last 30 seconds or so. Body language of Veron, to me, starting to change a little bit. He looks like a fighter under duress. He looks like a fighter who is starting to weather. Good left hook, though, from Veron. He comes back just opted enough to surprise Ceballo, who comes right back with an uppercut. And another one from Ceballo. Terrific shot on the inside. Ceballo doing a really good job of cutting off the ring. Again, he's working with some small dimensions here that are working in his favor. But Ceballo lands a wicked body shot right at the bell. So here we go with round 6. You have to wonder if Brian Ceballo is starting to break Luis Veron down. No doubt he's looking for a bounce-back victory, but a statement win, a stoppage win over Luis Veron would be an added boost. You know, Kurt, one thing we haven't seen too much of from Ceballo, though, despite his amateur credentials, his boxing skills, Ceballo hasn't jabbed a ton. And when he does, sometimes it's kind of here in no man's land, where it's sort of begging for the right hand from Luis Veron, in a sense. Veron hasn't really been able to do a ton with it, but Ceballo, you wonder if he could be measuring Veron and keeping him at range where he could land his best power shots a little bit better by getting a little more active with the left hand.
You're never going to hear a boxing trainer tell their fighter to jab less, but the one thing we could maybe attribute that to is the shifty style of Luis Veron. He's a moving target, and he does come up with surprising counter punches, surprising combinations. We've seen Ceballo take shots from angles he didn't necessarily expect. Now, to your point, Corey, if he could work a consistent jab, maybe that would be different.
Well, we're seeing Ceballo, I think, fight aggressively because he wants to make a statement, but also you don't really have a choice against Luis Veron. Again, I know he says that he fights like Marcos Maidana. He does not. So you have to go and get him if you're going to face Luis Veron. Veron just rolling with these shots right now. Pure volume at the moment from Ceballo. Steps in with a good left hook to the body and a chopping right hand. The swelling becoming more and more visible on the face of Luis Veron as the rounds tick away. Stabbing jab there from Ceballo. That might be the best jab that he's thrown all night.
And to Ceballos' credit, he's getting into a rhythm, getting into a flow, and he's not allowing Veron's movement to stop him from executing on his game plan. Here we see some action from the previous round. Ceballo avoiding punches and then moving in, working that left hand, working that lead hand that Corey was asking for. The reason that it didn't come at a typical angle that we usually see is because of the way Veron has been moving. He was taking a back step there, and Ceballo was still able to find him.
Two to go in our main event, and Brian Ceballo looking anxious to get this round going. He was up off his stool and waiting near center ring about 20 seconds before he actually had to be. And Luis Veron making use of all those extra seconds. And Veron just took a deep breath after that right hand to the body.
It was another vicious body shot from Brian Ceballo. and that has been consistent throughout this fight.
Veron has been knocked down 5 times in his career, twice by Mikey McKinson. And Ceballo would love to add his name to that list.
And it's a great job by Ceballo because he was working the body consistently. As Veron started to cover up on the body, Ceballo moved directly to the head. He landed combinations upstairs, and then he went right back downstairs. It's a varied attack. He's keeping Luis Veron guessing even in this round 7.
Veron just playing defense for the most part here in this round. Ceballo just touching him everywhere he can. Inside the final minute of round 7. Hard right hand comes over the top from Ceballo. One of the best punches of the fight. Another right hand comes in. The crowd comes alive here at Sony Hall. Final 30 seconds. Does Ceballo have Veron in some trouble? The crowd wants it to be so. But Veron just so durable, so shifty, somehow managing to absorb this punishment. And not just that, but continue moving for nearly every moment of every round. Another hard combination from Ceballo right at the bell.
A tremendous round 7 by Brian Ceballo. His best round of the fight so far. We mentioned the body attack that was able to set up the headshots, and that was a huge right hand right there. Ceballo knew he had Veron hurt. He stepped on the gas. And one thing that was for sure is that Ceballo could sense the energy here in New York. He lives in Manhattan. This fight is in Times Square. It's an intimate venue. And that was certainly on Ceballo's mind there during that attack.
And I believe are they waving this one off? No. Brian Ceballo certainly thought they were. Just a cursory visit from the ringside physician. And a wicked right hand comes over the top from Ceballo just seconds into the round. Ceballo coming out extremely aggressive here in the 8th round.
Great job by Ceballo, building on the momentum from the end of the last round.
3-punch combination and uppercut right up the middle. Closes that one out.
We mentioned a few rounds ago, Vernon was playing defense. Well, now it's defense and run.
Yeah, this is full survival mode for Veron right now. This is just feinting and moving. In round 7, he tried to just catch punches. Right now, he's trying to not get touched at all. But Ceballo still finding a way to get through with the right hand twice. And now again going back downstairs to the body.
And the fact that Veron is not throwing punches back is empowering Brian Ceballo to really sit down on his punches. And we're seeing that with the sustained right hands to the head of Veron.
I think that's a really good point. Ceballos noticed, well, nothing is going to come back. If I miss, the worst that's going to happen is he's just going to circle to the to the other side of the ring. Ceballo has now opened up a cut, it seems, on the face of Veron, who takes another flush right hand.
Veron is essentially serving as target practice here for Brian Ceballo in the final round.
Well, it is a moving target, but it is a target that is not hitting back. Final minute of this contest. A revitalizing bounce-back performance for Brian Ceballo.
And this will be a huge confidence-building win for Ceballo. But if he can do something special in the last 30 seconds, that'll really boost his confidence.
Well, he is going all out after it right now. Final 20 seconds. Luis Veron just wants to pass the finish line. And it looks like he will make it there, but take nothing away from Brian Ceballo, who looks improved and refreshed.
And here was Ceballos' attack in the final round. He could sense the end was near. No punches being thrown from Luis Veron. It was target practice for Ceballo.
Brian Ceballo all smiles. And certainly, Curran, for Brian Ceballo, there are elements of his game that I'm sure he wants to improve upon, but this was a drastically different fighter than the one that we saw last October in Puerto Rico.
A lot of times you'll speak to a fighter, they'll tell you their mindset, their game plan before a fight, but that doesn't necessarily manifest itself in the ring. This time around, Brian Ceballo said his last fight was a wake-up call. It motivated him, and he was going to be 200% in the ring, and that is the version of Brian Ceballo we saw here tonight.
Well, this one should not be particularly difficult to score. And I believe our Matt Compitello has the scores in his hand. And after the decision is read, our current Batia will speak to the winner. We thank everyone for tuning in here tonight. An exciting night of Broadway boxing. With that, let's send it up to Matt Compitello to make this one official.
Ladies and gentlemen, after 8 rounds of boxing action, we go to the judges' scorecards for the winner of our main event, Judge John Basile. John McKay scores the bout 80-72. John Basile and Anthony Lundy 79-73. Your winner by way of unanimous decision, Brian Ceballos.
I'm here with the winner, Brian Ceballo. Brian, you improved to 14-1 in that win. We discussed pre-fight. You were coming off a loss. You were extra motivated. You said you would be 200% tonight. How would you assess your performance?
I would assess my performance a C level. I thought I could have done just a little bit more to break him down a little bit sooner so that we could have gotten the stoppage. But I'm overall happy with tonight. Again, I went through a tremendous 3 years. For the past 3 years, from 2020 to 2023, early 2023, I turned my life back around. So I'm happy where I am now. I'm back to where I told you yesterday, about 200% motivated to continue training and to continue going for bigger fights. I wanna endure the 154-pound division. I actually wanna see if I could get a shot at Sebastian Fondora. He just came off a loss, so I think it will be a great matchup between us.
It's certainly, you've turned your life around and now you get yourself back in the win column here. You live here in Manhattan. You own a gym in the financial district. What is your message to these fans in New York who came out to support you?
I just want to thank every single one of the people that came out tonight. It means so much. I was saying the other day, I truly forgot how much support I have here in my hometown. And I just really want to say thank you to everyone. You guys made it out. It's a late night. It's a Thursday night, and you guys are here. So I really want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart.
And finally, you mentioned Sebastian Fondora as a future opponent. Does this win put you right back in the conversation in the division for all the big matchups?
I think so. I think it's a start. We're gonna turn things around, try to get another fight quickly, and then we can go for the bigger guys like Sebastian Fondora. I think I'm one of the names in the 154-pound division, so everybody better look out.
Brian Ceballo, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.